I am pleased to introduce Kathy Doyle from Middlebury College and Doyle Ecological Services, and Jess Wickel from the University of Vermont, both representing the Women's Forest Content Development Work Group. They will be discussing how to build the Women's Forest Congress while addressing today's greatest forest challenges. Following their presentation, we will be going into breakout rooms to identify some of the greatest forest challenges and opportunities for addressing and discussing at the 2022 in-person event. Kathy and Jess, I am going to turn it over to you.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm happy to be introducing you to the Addressing Today's Greatest Forest Challenges portion of our program. My name is Kathy Doyle. I'm a forest ecologist. I'm currently a professor at Middlebury College where I teach environmental science labs. I'm somebody who values holistic thinking and thinking about the connections between parts of systems. I value rich communication, engaging many voices. I think, and I'm passionate about exploring and learning from forests, as well as the spaces within and between forests. I think there are some slides that are going to be shown. So once we get those up, I will let you know what you're seeing on the screen. I hope the picture on the screen will serve as a metaphor of what we are going to do together in the next half hour or so, 45 minutes. It's an opening in a forest in New Hampshire, a fen or an enriched bog with cotton sedge that you can see here in the upper right-hand corner, and has small but cone-bearing tamarack trees that you can see down here in the lower right. It's a place where I quite literally felt drawn in and invited to explore while I was on a walk this summer, and where I also quite literally got stuck above my knees in deep sphagnum peat. To get myself unstuck, I couldn't keep walking as I had been. I needed to identify a new approach. I had to get down on all fours with a big stick between my hands to disperse my weight rather than keep doing what I had been doing, which was walking on 2 feet and getting more and more bogged down with every step. Just like I had to do something different in response to the conditions I found myself in, so too this tamarack in the lower right-hand corner was growing much more slowly in this wet spot than it would on drier upland areas. Today, we as the Women's Forest Congress are trying to spread out our roots widely to get ideas from all of you on both what are both the greatest challenges facing forests today, and what might be some approaches that we might recommend for addressing these challenges in hopes that we can get unstuck and move forward to craft a better future together. I hope everyone will feel warmly invited to participate in the following breakout rooms and will feel valued for their contributions as we plan for our larger event next year. The purpose of this next activity is to crowdsource multiple perspectives and ideas from you, women who represent so many different aspects of forestry and conservation and who represent much diversity across the forest sector. First here, I will give you some background on the work we have done as the Women's Forest Congress to get to the point where we are right now. And then my collaborator, Jess Wickel, will give you some specifics about the upcoming breakout room activity and the work you will be contributing to that we will be contributing to collectively today. Jess and I are both members of the Content Development Working Group. And this summer we agreed to brainstorm about the theme of addressing today's greatest forest challenges. And we set out to collect some resources and build on the work that had already taken place in the July 2020 summit, where a preliminary list of themes and content for this theme was generated. So in the July 2020 summit, the ideas on this slide show what are some of the shows some of the preliminary ideas that were generated during the July 2020 summit. Under this theme of addressing today's forest challenges. The role and value of forests in the circular economy was identified as an important element. Also, innovative solutions to the issues of climate change, incorporating women's unique voices and roles, and learning from other sectors, other communities, such as agriculture, natural resources, et cetera, and other topics that are important, but maybe didn't pop up, such as the loss of structural complexity in forests, forest fragmentation, insect outbreaks, changes in disturbance regimes, loss of biodiversity, and a number of other topics that I'm sure that you all will contribute to the brainstorming session today. As Jess and I thought about the greatest forest challenges facing forests today, we recognized that the list was long and the factors were interrelated, and perhaps we would be better served by figuring out some framework or approaches that might be helpful in addressing many of the diverse and interconnected challenges. So I will turn things over to Jess, who will discuss the format of the breakout rooms and the questions we will address together. Here's Jess.
Thanks, Kathy. So my name is Jess Weichel. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Vermont studying silviculture for climate adaptation. My path in forestry has taken me through several years of working as a forester in the private sector and now several years in academia. And I've developed some strong opinions on what the greatest problems in forestry are, as I'm sure many of you have. Interestingly, despite the fact that the Content Development Working Group has members spread across the entire country, the two of us who ended up leading this topic live just 45 minutes away from each other in Vermont. As Kathy and I sat down to discuss this topic earlier this summer, we discovered that we have some shared experience and opinions on the matter, and some quite strong opinions. And that if the two of us with so many similarities in our backgrounds could talk about it for several hours, then it is crucial to hear from as many diverse voices as possible to build a fuller picture of what challenges forests are facing today and offer ideas for how to address the challenges. We've been thrilled to see the broad range of backgrounds and experiences of all of you that have joined here today, and it's been lovely to learn and grow with you all afternoon. Looking back on our past brainstorming events, one recurring point has been, how can viewing these challenges, the biggest challenges confronting the forest sector, through a female or femme lens, improve the ability to address and stay persistent through working on tricky problems? What can we offer to the forest sector that is not currently there? With that in mind, we have set up this session so that all of you here can weigh in on the topic. The majority of the session will develop discussion in breakout rooms, focusing on three main questions. The first of those is, what are the greatest challenges and opportunities facing forests, conservation, and the forest sector? We'd love to know what, from your unique experience, is a challenge that you see as you work and interact with forests that might benefit from attention through the lens of the Women's Forest Congress. The second question is, what approaches might be adopted or used to make progress in tackling these challenges and opportunities? So the door is open here for suggestions of specific approaches and tactics, as well as examples or resources that could guide implementation of these approaches. And the third question, more broadly speaking, what frameworks might be usefully employed to address the greatest challenges affecting forests today? And we put together a few examples of frameworks to help guide this final question. This was a lot of what the brainstorming we did this summer. So one of those frameworks is systems thinking. In other words, thinking about the different moving parts of a challenge and its potential solutions through an interdisciplinary frame encompassing economic, social, and environmental elements and processes. We see the underpinning of this framework led by defining and emphasizing the role of forests in the circular economy, as well as mapping and holistically framing the challenges and understanding women's roles in solving them. Another framework is creative problem solving. We need to recognize that past approaches may not work the same way as we move into the future. We see a path here in thinking outside of the box, adaptively and nimbly, recognizing context and looking outside of our discipline into other fields to identify new methods for problem solving. Third framework is communication and education. So central to this concept is recognizing the nuanced, dynamic, and place-based nature of forests. More broadly, we feel that the forest sector will thrive if more people understand what happens in forests and who we who make up the forest sector are. We believe we need to better tell the stories of the forests and the people who work with the forests to the public. And the final framework is inclusive perspectives. This is a theme that we've touched on today and that I know many of us are thinking about already, but here's how we think it applies to working toward addressing the greatest forest challenges of today. Listening to diverse voices, women's voices in forest management, including diverse landowners, and taking a hard look at inclusion in terms of access to land. Bringing perspectives and concerns held by groups whose voices have not historically been centered in forestry, and bringing humility to interactions and learning. So most importantly, we want your ideas here. Very shortly, you'll be whisked away into breakout rooms to discuss and share your perspectives on these questions. Each breakout room will have a facilitator and a note taker. And at the end of the session, we'll share back with you some of the recurring themes that took place during the session. Thanks so much for your engagement near the end of this event, and we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this important topic.
All right, well, it looks like everyone has joined us back. And so I just want to share a few key takeaways as we go into our next session. And so I was looking at the Jamboard, and I also want to share that Urban Wild Studios was looking at the Jamboard, but also in various breakout rooms to depict the key themes that were from the particular questions. And so as I was looking at challenges, some of the key themes that really stood out to me that I saw various times was climate change, people from different points of view to make a change, forest health equals human health issues, managing generational change in the workforce, also the amount of land transfer and the fragmentation of land, and then women should be compensated for their labor. And I do want to state that my list that I am sharing is not inclusive of all. All of your points are very important, but these were some of the key takeaways that were stated on various accounts. Then as we look at opportunities, one that stood out was educational information sharing with people that are not involved in the Women's Forest Congress. Also, climate change putting greater focus on forests, need to plant for diversity of species for future forests. Also, early education and exposure is needed for all students. And then also policy and behavior. And then for the last question, what approaches this was not the last question, but what approaches can we take to solving them? A few of the key takeaways were keep our forests healthy, also collaboration, reimagining cities as a solution, and then also looking at current or old ways of tackling issues aren't going to be effective problem-solving tools in the future. And then for the last question, some of the key takeaways were utilize women's strengths, policy and behavior change go hand in hand, listening and having conversations, community-based participatory research, and then new perspectives. The old ways isn't always the new or right way. So I think we had a great grasp and great responses for that particular activity. And again, this is really going to help us as we move the Women Forest Congress forward. So I would like to truly thank you all for participating and building your network within the Women's Forest Congress as we are addressing today's greatest forest challenges. And I want to give us a few minutes to look at the depiction from Urban Wild. They have been capturing our session for the duration of the day. And so I would be remiss if I did not give them the opportunity to showcase the work that they have been doing. And so we will also showcase this at the end, and it is also on our website. But they have done a phenomenal job in capturing through picture, through graphics, what we have been discussing today. So thank you all, Urban Wild Studios, for being here and capturing our session today.